My today's talk is about information valuation, and my project title is Optimizing Information Value versus Available Bandwidth in Satellite Data Broadcast Radio Network for Health Informatics in Emergency Situations. And I'm Amir from Management Science Department of University of Waterloo. Well, we first talk about the problem definition, and then we review very fast different measurement models which are provided up to now for information valuation. And as you can see, there are from different domains: communication theory, accounting models, risk management, and also information quality. Then we talk about our approach for the problem, and we talk about further research possibilities. Well, our problem definition, suppose that we have the data from satellite that can be transmitted to different public health officers, and this bandwidth which we use is very restricted. It's about 20,000 bits per second, and when we consider the redundancy factor, it reduces to about 7,000 bits per second. And on the other hand, the receiver has restricted memory capacity because he or she uses handheld devices or mobile, and so we want to optimize the usage of this limited bandwidth so that the information that we send over this bandwidth will be optimized or maximized, in fact, in this case. And our problem area is health informatics in emergency situations. Consider, for example, outbreak of communicable diseases, or, for example, radioactive leakage from nuclear plants or biotourism. These are sample applications or situations or scenarios that we can consider when we need this link extra to other links that there may be. So value of information, in fact, is a multidimensional problem. It has, as we will see, it has many different dimensions which we should consider when we want to solve this problem. And it depends upon one's perception because people have give different values to same piece of information, and also one person gives different values to same information in different times. Also, it has both qualitative and quantitative aspects, and measuring is quite difficult. So that Robinson has concluded that data value information cannot be measured directly. It can only be measured indirectly. And the value of information within an organization is very elusive to find the real value because of the complexities that a piece of information has different roles in different scenarios in that organization. So, communication theory model, as you know, Shannon in 1949 developed information theory and in fact in communication theory, and he defined information as a message has as information as it can reduces the uncertainty about an event. And based upon this information definition, Howard in 1966 gave the definition for information value as the possible gain that we can take by knowing about the event from that information. In fact, the advantage of this model is that, first of all, it gives a framework, a mathematical framework for information definition, and it is useful foundation for in purely engineering contexts. But the disadvantage is that it focuses only on the amount of information transmitted. And it's quite natural because its goal is in the communication theory. And it ignores any consideration of content or meaning. So for our project, we cannot use from this model. There are also accounting valuation models, which all of them consider information as an intangible asset, and there are different models. Cost model, which Moody and Walsh in 1999 offered 7 principles for information valuation, and they also give a framework for calculating the cost of information, which has a huge effect in this area, accounting models, I mean. And the market accounting models are based on information value in exchange or in market, how much value has information in the market. And the utility accounting models are based on the revenue that information can generate for an organization. And it's one of the main figures in this area is POOR, which offered this in 2000. The advantages of these models are that they, again, they give a framework, and they are useful in finding or calculating the cost of information. But the disadvantage of these models for our project is that they have different goals. Suppose we find a piece of information has little cost, but it can has very important value for our scenario. So it cannot be directly used for our project, but we may use it indirectly, as we will see later. And it's time-consuming and very difficult sometimes to calculate the cost. In risk management method, in fact, risk management identifies, measures, and controls on certain events at the lowest possible cost. And it considers different risk forms, such as economical, legal, social, political, juridical, and physical risk, and tries to minimize these for the organization. And the advantages of this method is that it includes risk and considers that not having a piece of information can bring risk to the organization. And also it considers quantifying and qualifying aspects of the information. But its disadvantage for our project is that it's subjective and very difficult, to the extent that sometimes it becomes misleading. And there is no conclusive model in this risk management, and that's why we say risk management method, not risk management model. But we may use this also in our approach because knowing about the risk of not having a piece of information is important in our project. So in information quality, in fact, they consider information as a piece of as a product, and they consider that the consumer, the people, or in our case the public health officers which receive the information, are consumers of this product. So as every product should have quality, and a quality product in fact is acceptable, so we should consider information also as a product and consider different dimensions of for its quality. And here in the second column we see the different dimensions which are suggested, and then they try to categorize these different dimensions due to their similarities to different classes or categories. And we will see the different definitions of each of these dimensions because they are quite important in our approach. So here, as we see, there are intrinsic information quality, which considers only the information. It says that some dimensions consider information just intrinsically without any relation to whatever situation or scenario it has. So information should be accurate, should be objective, should be believable, or the source of it should have good reputation. More it is accurate or objective, more it has value. Then the other category is accessibility of information quality, which you see here. These different dimensions, accessibility, ease of operations, and security are within this category. Relevancy, value added, timeliness, completeness, and amount of information are classified in the contextual information quality because here the information is considered as the context and the relation with other pieces of information or in the scenario that it is needed. And the last category is representational information quality, which has interpretability, ease of understanding, concise representation and consistent representation. Now we look at definitions of these different information quality dimensions. Accessibility is the extent to which the information is available or easily and quickly retrievable. Appropriate amount of information is the extent to which the volume of information is appropriate for the task at hand, for the task which in this scenario we want to do. And believability is the extent to which information is regarded as true and credible. Suppose that we say tomorrow the weather temperature will be 200 degrees Fahrenheit. It's not true. It cannot be credible. So in this way we see different dimensions. And completeness is the extent to which the piece of information is not missing or is of sufficient breadth and depth for the task at hand. And concise representation considers the extent to which the information is compactly represented. As we may see, there are definitions for other dimensions of information quality also. I just browsed some of them. Free of error is the extent to which the information is correct and reliable. Objectivity is the extent to which the information is unbiased, unprejudiced, and impartial. And reputation is the extent to which information is highly regarded due to its source or content. And security is the extent to which information access is appropriately restricted to only authorized persons. And timeliness is the extent to which the information is sufficiently up to date for the task at hand. And as we see, these four people, Lee, Pipino, Strong, and Wang, in 2002 suggested this information quality. Of course, they have done it from 1989 to up to now even. They are working in this area. And there are other people also, but these are the most important ones. And these same people have also developed metrics for that. Our approach is a combination of previous models. In fact, none of these solely is sufficient for our purpose. For example, for the cost, we can consider cost as cost of not having a piece of information. Here, cost is not meant dollars. It means for example, number of lives which is at danger if we miss this piece of information. And risk reduction is the dimension that considers, for example, which this piece of information reduces which risks, legal risks, social risks, or political risks. And information as a product is the other information quality dimensions which we discussed previously. And we should consider that here we have different scenarios. So for each scenario, we have to define its own information dimensions. We cannot consider a global information dimension for all different types of scenarios. So biotourism has its own dimension, qualities, information dimensions, and also the other scenarios. So we need for developing this model, we need feedback from different public health officers which are involved in each scenario. So our approach is to communicate more and more with them and discuss and make different questionnaires to see how they value each piece of information according to these different information dimensions which we discussed. Further research. There are two other domains which I want to consider. One is multi-criteria decision making, because obviously our problem is one aspect or one example of this model. We should make it. The public health officers should make decisions, and for making this decision, there are many criteria which, according to that, they should make their decisions. And the other thing is that a person named Young Kare, in 2002, developed a mathematical theory of information, and it's very promising because it gives a mathematical framework for information valuation, and I would like to consider this also. So if there is any questions, I would be pleased.
Have you considered the value of information over time, so information becoming less valuable or more valuable?
Yes, timeliness, if you consider timeliness was one of the information quality dimensions, which, yes, that talks about that. Other questions?
I think one of the things that I think about as I look at this is how do you come up with a metric? In other words, you've got many
yes.
dimensions,
Yes.
and if your fundamental problem is to optimize the value of information against the
Exactly.
available bandwidth.
Exactly.
That's really what it comes down to. And if you really mean that word optimize, then we need some numeric representation.
Exactly.
And that's one aspect. And I guess
Yes.
the other thing is, you say you're looking at the value of not having information. Is that really symmetric with the value of having information?
Not,
I don't think so.
no, not necessarily, and that's why we don't solely base up, our model upon this.
Oh.
That's why we consider other dimensions also. Yes, it's not symmetric with that at all. Yes.
Go back to slide 6.
All right. Just your question. I wanted to answer the first question about the metrics. In fact, due to time limitation, I didn't show and discuss that. There are 3 types of or categories of matrices that are offered by these people, these 4 people that I mentioned. First of all is mean or max. The other one is the simple ratio. Simple ratio discusses about the ratio of undesired outcomes to whole number of outcomes, possible outcomes. And mean or max considers those dimensions which are as aggregate of other dimensions or other pieces of information. For example, if you need a vector of piece of information, and then each one has for example, we can say accessibility. All right. This accessibility, if for one piece is, for example, 9, and for the other piece is 2, then the whole array is minimum of these, because you should wait to get this piece of information also, the one that accessibility for it is 2. So for aggregate dimensions which consider aggregate informations, they suggest mean or max or weighted average. These 3 categories are suggested for matrix. So
Just slide 6.
6 here.
This slide, you had at the beginning the cost or historical cost, but the market and utility values are not costs. They're outputs or values. And then when you talked at the end, you seem to say that all the frameworks were related to the cost of information. I don't think that's true unless I missed it.
I see your point. I see your point. I see your point.
The comment
Yes.
on the cost thing is the cost one doesn't apply, but the market value might or might not, whether you want to use it or not. The utility value might or might not, but those are value side rather than cost side.
In fact, each value can be considered as a cost for, the value is difference between the cost and the revenue that it gives. So it can be positive or negative. It becomes negative, it's cost. If it's positive, so it's value, or that's it. So we can consider cost of information or value of information or utility of information. These are different just words. When it's the cost is more than the value that it generates here, revenue that it generates, then it's cost. But here, in fact, they are using different wordings for approximately same thing. Here, when they are talking about cost of information, yes, they are trying to find each piece of information, how much is how much it costs for organization to get this or to have it. So, in a sense, the wording that they say and the point of view is different from this. Yes, yes, but these two also should consider the cost because they consider, in fact, because the market value is, in fact, it's based on market value. They consider first the as baseline the cost of obtaining the piece of information, and then they try to evaluate the exchange value of it.
It seems that all of your dimensions might in fact be bipolar. I'm not sure as I went through, but there's a dimension can either have a positive or a negative.
Yes, sure. Most of them, yes.
Any other comments or questions? Good, thank you very much.
Thank you.